In the 1970s, the Oklahoma Methodist Conference took note of the fact that Tulsa was growing to the south and to the east. And at about this time, the developer of the neighborhood around this church, a guy named Never Fail, donated this land to the Oklahoma Methodist Conference. And in response to that, they found a young pastor in a town near Oklahoma City, full of faith, full of energy, and sent him over here to start this church. And they didn't send much with him. He had a formidable task to go up and down these streets, knocking on doors, asking people to join a church that did not exist. But thanks to the fact that he did do that he persevered, he answered the call of God, we are all here today. Let's have a warm welcome for our founding pastor, Dr. Kip Wright. Joining him today will be two guys. The first 20 men who joined this church, 1 out of every 5 of them went into the ministry. In fact, Mike Miller was telling me that he was a member of the first men's group at Faith, and he was the only member of the group who did not go into the ministry. Something in the water, I think. But helping out this morning will be Reverend Sonny Plischke and Reverend Rusty Williams. You're on.
You want to go first?
No, you go. I'm W, I'm last.
Oh. Rusty's always been a tail end of the caboose.
I'm going to join the choir. I have to sit down.
My goodness, 40 years. When somebody tells you that seems like yesterday, don't believe it. It was 40 years ago. A lot of water under the bridge. But I remember Mary Helen and I, Mary Helen was a longtime member at Trinity United Methodist down in Brookside. And our pastor, Reverend Don Waters, mentioned one Sunday morning that they were thinking about starting a new church out in southeast Tulsa, and if you were interested, you might call the district superintendent and let him know we'd help out. So Mary Helen called. And it wasn't too long after that, this character shows up on our doorstep. I was gone that day. She's the one that made the commitment, not me. And asked that if we'd come that Sunday to help that first Sunday service being held at Holland Hall. So we went that first Sunday. And next Sunday, we went back to Trinity. I heard him preach. He's a good preacher, I'm kidding, and he knows that. But we went back to Trinity to tell Don Waters that we were going to be a part of starting Faith United Methodist Church out here in southeast Tulsa. Mary Helen cried. Don Waters, God love his heart, prayed for us as we went on our way. So it all started out at Holland Hall. And again, Kip is an excellent preacher. Excellent preacher, but he made the mistake. If you saw that one picture, it showed the glass windows, and there's an open field back there. He preached with his back to that window. And in the springtime, or in the wintertime when the snow began to fall, a deer and a doe might walk out on that land, and I lost whatever he was talking about. I think everybody else did too. You never did change that around. I'm so thankful. But we were a mobile church. In those days, you're blessed. You come here, you got everything set out, everything's laid out. You come here and sit in the pews and enjoy the service. When we were starting out at Holland Hall, everything was mobile. Porta cribs were brought in, Pammy, up and down those stairs for the nursery that sat in the back. When the gals went to the store, we bought crayons, we bought colored paper, we bought paper for the kids to color on. We supplied everything. The one thing that we didn't supply that John did mention was Never Fail Jr. when he donated this property to the Tulsa district. That was a blessed time. Excuse me just a minute. We were here on that one particular Sunday that we all stuck that shovel in the ground, turned that first pile of dirt over, and we come out here, I think, several times a week watching this church come out of the ground. But I never will forget that one particular Sunday in 1978, that 13 families, 13, stood with the district superintendent and became charter members of that church. Mary Helen and I, and the Johns and Pratts and several others. Charter members, 13 families. My, what a difference 40 years makes. So here we are. I sit here and think about the memories, and most preachers, I'm a yacker. I could go on and on and on, but I'm not. You've got other things to do. So besides that, I'm getting hungry. But I think about the memories of the church. I think about the time that myself and I think about 6 others signed our name on the dotted line to buy this parsonage over here in Chimney Hills. Many of you don't know about that. Some of you do, I know. But I also think about that lady that lived there too, and how all the meetings that we would have, the dinners, the ice cream socials, everything that we did, that parsonage became our church for quite a while. I don't know how Deanna put up with it, but she did. Most of you don't know, but let me tell you, and I got one that can testify. Preacher's wife is not the easiest life in the world. I was blessed to have this one as my mate. Always stood by my side through thick and thin. Out of a small Bible study, though, I think what was the ratio? I forgot what it was, but out of a small Bible study, 3 of us went into ministry. Bob Johns, Rusty, where are you, Rusty? There you are. Rusty and myself. I knew you were around here somewhere. Long trip through the ministry and to elders in the United Methodist Church. But as I look back, I was sitting here last night in our den. We live over here at Forest Ridge now. I'm retired. Somebody asked me the other day, "What are you doing now, Sonny?" I said, "I'm retired." That's my favorite answer. But I was sitting here in my den last night thinking about this, and I think about the first 2 funerals that were even held here. The Botker family was always a very part of this church in every fashion, every way. We'd meet over there time and time again to get door knockers. Remember that? Talking about faith and where we were located, what we were about, and every Saturday we were out in this neighborhood hanging door knockers on the doors, inviting people to come to Faith United Methodist Church. Botker family is very, very special. The first adult funeral that was held at Faith United Methodist Church that Kip did was for Bob Botker, a charter member. The second funeral that was done here in this church was for an infant, a newborn. Our daughter, Alicia Ann Plischke. So there's a lot of firsts and a lot of memories that go on here. But the most memorable thing of all is 13 families who made the decision to dedicate themselves to plant a church out here in southeast Tulsa. And so, here we are. Here we are. Praise be to God. Thank you.
I'm here to tell you that the first Sunday that Shirley and I came to this new church start at Holland Hall was the worst experience in church I ever had. Because we drove up to Holland Hall, didn't look around too much, but all these people were going into the chapel. Well, that must be where this new church start is. So we go into the chapel, and immediately my old traditional dinosaur guts started rolling. Because it was a very charismatic congregation. And I remember sitting there through that whole service saying, I'm going to call the district superintendent. And then after I sat there toward the end of the service, I said, I'm going to call the bishop. As we were leaving that day, very disappointed in this new church start, I happened to look over to the side as we were going out of the chapel, and there was a small sign with the United Methodist Cross in flames. You went to the library for that service. So I didn't call the district superintendent, I didn't call the bishop, and we came back the next Sunday. I like Faith United Methodist Church as a church start because it was the first time in my life that I was fully aware that faith is something that will lead you to the edge and you think you're going to drown. While at the same time, faith is something that taken in your mouth as water can refresh you. The same amount of water that can make you live all day long, if in your lungs, can kill you instantly. And I like that part of starting a church. That the very element that could kill is also the element that gives life. And you're sort of on the edge. The building committee was the most difficult time I'd been in another church. I was on the finance committee and I was on the administrative board. But when I came to this church and they appointed me to the building committee, how do you dream the same dream when you're 6 or 7 strong individuals? And going through that process, I began to respect highly the body of Christ imagery in the New Testament, that each brought a gift. And what happened after all that deliberation was that we had these great plans, and the architect drew them up, and we had only half enough money that we could raise, and we had to scale them back. But I liked being in that position where the same amount of water that could make you live for a day is the same amount of water that could make you drown if in your lungs. And in that environment, we chose to live. We chose to look forward, to keep our head above water, even though there were times when it looked like it was going to go down. And the second thing I remember so vividly about being a member of this church from the very beginning was that when it was time for United Methodist Men, which we wanted immediately at the start, you mentioned that the Wrights were very friendly with their parsonage and let us have dinners and meetings and whatever, but we didn't think they would want us there at 8:30 on Saturday morning for men's breakfast. Hakey Park. Every time you drive by Hakey Park, give God thanks for the picnic tables over there, where the few of us as United Methodist men brought the stuff and put it together and cooked breakfast and formed bonds there in God's nature that were very vital to our development and to the development of the church. And the last thing I want to remember is that it was here that I taught Spanish at Broken Arrow High School, and I resented the fact that there were things I could be doing at this church if I didn't have to work. I resented the fact that that was getting in the way of what I wanted to do. And finally, Kip Wright, in his astuteness, said to me after we were leaving a meeting, and I was beside my car, he was one car over beside his car, and he simply said to me, "When are you going to seminary?" That's the most profound thing you ever did in my life, primal pastor. And that made me begin to think. And I answered that call eventually, and I've had a wonderful life, all because my faith was set at Faith Church. And I wouldn't change a thing about that experience except the first Sunday that we went to Holland Hall.
Well, if you believe I'll be brief. I've got some underwater lake property in Florida but I do want to thank Sonny and Rusty, John, for their sharing, and also not sharing this morning, but a good friend of the church and a leader in ministry is Randy Pratt. Randy, stand and be recognized. I see that by the program that the charter members are going to be recognized in some way or somewhere, some fashion, but so I won't go there. But I will say thank you for letting me be a part of your lives. You know, before the service, I was talking to Sonny and Mary Helen, and it was scary. It was scary because we were swinging without a net, and I was watching out the window of that library at Holland Hall, wondering, will anybody come? Will anybody come? And I saw that blue Chevrolet with the Plischkes, Sonny and Mary Helen and Michelle and Philip, and I thought there'll be somebody here. It was that way. But you know, we always had confidence, and hence the name of the church, faith. That God has ordained that something wonderful and holy would take place, not only on these acres, but would grow out from here. And I just want to stand and look at you this morning. You pulled out all the stops. Wow. This is really a whiz-bang show. But it should be. It should be. What I want to say is thank you for letting me be a part of your lives, you charter members. And there's nothing like doing stuff for the first time to make you humble and make you appreciate ultimately, it may be not at the time, but ultimately appreciate that we're in this together. We need each other. And those charter members and those who came shortly thereafter taught me lessons of faith and of life for which I am deeply, deeply grateful. Because as time has gone on, I've discovered that what really matters is not whether the buildings are just so and the bathrooms are in a certain place. It matters not about budget. Those things are incidental. What matters is our relationship to God. And I think the openness to the leadership of God's will and the strength that He supplied is what makes Faith the great church that it was then and that it is now. I thank you for being a part of it and for allowing me the opportunity to stand in that endless line of splendor with God's people, doing God's work in God's world. I thank you. And the other thing that I would share is while it was exciting and a trip worth remembering and giving thanks for, that Faith Church's greatest hour is yet to be. And I will only stand as a witness and watch that happen. I put on a suit today, and it's been a while since I've had a suit on because while I'm still pastoring, I wear tennis shoes and a knit shirt to church, and I'm the most dressy person there. But, we're having fun. And one of my mottos is, if we're not having fun, we're not doing it right. So let's laugh at each other. Let's trust God, and let's open our hearts to what God is making happen here at Faith Church. Thank you so much.